Namaste and welcome to AIDIA Dialogue. Foreign direct investment plays pivotal role in the global economy. In the backdrop of limited domestic resources for a country like Nepal, the role of FDI is even more essential to accelerate economic growth and national development. In this episode of AIDIA Dialogue, I am going to discuss with the Chief Executive Officer of Investment Board of Nepal, Mr. Maha Prasad Adhikari, mainly concentrating on the outcomes of recently held Nepal Investment Summit, overall investment climate, policy issues and reform initiative undertaken by the government, trend of foreign direct investments in Nepal and more. Welcome to AIDIA Dialogue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time as well.
Most well.
To begin with, I vividly remember the closing ceremony of Nepal Investment Summit, where you as a CEO of Investment Board, Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli and all the government officials came up with a very common statement that the real job will start after the summit is over. As it's been a few months, summit is over. Has the real job started?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. In fact, the statement that is rightly made during the summit by Right Honorable Prime Minister and most of the official of the summit, the reason behind is that we have lots of opportunity. So since we have opportunity, there is interest from the foreign delegates, foreign investor. The issue now is to start to collaborate with. So it's an opportunity, it's a starting point for the economic transformation. To me, after having around 2.5 months from the summit, we are working hard to translate, to evaluate further the proposal we received. Today is the last date to submit the proposal. We extended 1 month. There is a very huge response from the potential investor. That interest, that proposal we have to evaluate and we have to conclude logically so that the project will be awarded to a right developer and that will be completed in right times. If those proposals which we received, those projects which were showcased and the proposal we received are properly handled with, I think the economic transformation agenda, the first step will be that one.
And taking reference to the experience of past investment summit, that regardless of huge FDI commitments in the investment summit held in 2017, the real flow of investment is very negligible. What lesson we have learned from that?
Yeah, we learned some sort of lesson, but at the same time, the response or the achievement of 2017 summit is also not that encouraging. It is also very much satisfactory to the organizer, to the government, in fact.
But there was a huge gap between the investment committed and the real flow of investment.
Yeah, exactly. There is gap, almost $13.52 billion letter of intent. I don't say that commitment. Intent we received that time. But those intent were not fully prepared for, projects were not fully prepared for which the intent was shown. At the same time, we have to understand that every project cannot be translated into investment immediately. It will take time.
How confident are you that the investment placed during this year's summit will turn out as a real investment and the story of 2017 will not be repeated?
We'll be having some sort of tail twister, the clear follow-up mechanism for every MOU, and also we considering our limited capacity and limited human resources, we have already started procuring outsider independent even evaluator for the evaluation of the expression of an UI, for the evaluation of the even RFP for development of RFP, etc. Through the lesson learned as well as experience we had during last summit, we'll be achieving. I am very much confident on that.
Going back to that very summit, Investment Summit 2019 concluded with the signing of 15 MOUs and commitments to 17 projects among 77 showcased by Government of Nepal. Which are the sectors that investors are more interested in? Can you shed some light on this?
Projects we showcased are diverse in nature, diverse in sectors. Among them, investor has shown their interest basically mostly in hydropower sector as well as in transport and aviation sector. We also received some of the proposal for other urban development as well, even agriculture as well. So, in majority, the interest is in hydropower sector.
And there is an argument as well that government cannot look beyond hydropower. It is not exploring the other virgin sector as well for investment. Your take on this?
Hydropower is considered one of the backbone of our economy. So it should be promoted, in fact. So it got priority in that direction. At the same time, other areas like infrastructure, transport, aviation, etc. are also in priority. But if you see the interest of the investor, they will normally follow, show their interest on the area where they have their confidence, they have their commands, or they have similar experience in other countries. So that may be the case why the hydropower is chosen by the foreign investor.
And are there any new proposal as well?
Yeah, we are receiving new proposal as well in hydropower, in aviation like Nijgarh International Airport, even silo type agriculture, cold storage and multipurpose agriculture, farming, etc. We are receiving proposal in several sectors.
And looking at those MOUs, most of the MOUs are for joint venture companies agreement among private company, and there is a very lukewarm response to the project showcased by government. Why is that?
It's something miscommunicated, in fact. The MOU signed during the summit were basically among the private sector. It's on B2B basis. There were some MOU signed or some declaration made by even the government to private sector as well. You can see one MOU is signed between investment board itself and with the International Finance Corporation, World Bank Group, and also SEJA authority. You can see that job is already started. It's related to development of SEJA Block B and C into Simra SEZ, which job is already, that MOU is already executed. They started that job. So it's not only the private sector MOU, there were even government involvement is also there. Second part is that MOU among the private sector is made in the summit. The MOU on the project we showcased was not allowed during the summit because those projects will require certain formalities to award the project to certain private sector or a foreign investor. So that process will continue further depending upon the size and nature of the project. See, the proposal submission date itself extended till today, 20th of May. So after final date of the submission of the proposal, we will evaluate the proposal and there will be some other additional process to make the project, to structure the project. Even bigger project may require even transaction advisory services. So it will take time. So we did not allow any private sector that time itself to enter into MOU with the government on the showcase project. That's why it has been seen that the projects showcased were not signed during the summit itself. That is the factual thing.
Having said this, a lot of people argue that the private sector came up with a lot of preparation, whereas the government side lacked preparation. your take on this?
I don't agree on that. Yeah, we had huge effort to.
In terms of showcasing and finalizing the project, though the summit was very highly well choreographed.
Yeah, you can see that out of 77 projects, 50 projects were studied by the government and submitted to the summit, to the delegates. And we also requested, published a notice to the private sector to have their project if ready to showcase during the summit. So out of 77 projects, 27 are produced by the private sector, 50 were produced by the government. Government has studied within short span of time with its limited resources by pooling the resources even from other agencies. Even we got support from the development partner, even other agency like infrastructure bank, other financial institution, other government authorities, every ministry were on board. They sent representative for the study. So in that way, we came up with those 50 studied projects, which I can say that the initiatives and the outcome of that study is historic one. We cannot bring 50 study within limited period of time for the investor, some sort of ready to invest project. So I do not agree that the government were not prepared on the project front.
And National Planning Commission projected that Nepal requires an investment about US dollar 88 billion over 5 years, next 5 years. So obviously we need to work on FDI as well. There is no other way out. But looking at the statistics, net FDI inflows in 2017 was US dollar 196 million, but in 2018 it declined to US dollar 169 million, around 14% less. What is the reason behind this decline?
The investment, the ratio or a trend, we cannot expect consistent one. If you see the 16, 17 and 17, 18 data.
But the declining tendency is not satisfactory.
Yeah, Nepal's growth is very encouraging. Okay, 16, 17 and 17, 18. But 18, 19, it's not that much encouraging. It's almost consistent to the earlier years. If you see the global data of investment, last year it reduced almost 23.5%. Global investment flow itself is reduced. So we cannot expect every year to grow investment in that way. But our requirement is that we need huge amount of investment. So we have to bring, we have to increase. And we have to bring that bigger pie from the international global investment flow. That is our requirement. Yeah, you have rightly mentioned that almost $17 billion a year is required to meet our development goals, particularly the sustainable development goals set for 2030 requires annual investment of almost $17 billion. Out of that, the government itself, fiscal side itself can contribute a major portion, and the expectation from private sector is huge, almost 55% of the total investment. But considering our local resources, our local technical know-how, we need foreign investment. Financial requirement itself will be almost around 5 billion to 6 billion FDI is essential to meet our aspiration and our goal.
And let us discuss on some concrete example of our failure in a way to materialize the best FDI. There's a huge chaos regarding the Nigerian conglomerate Dangote Group. Its praised amount was 550 million US dollar for setting up cement plant in Nepal, but Nepal government denied the license, declaring the firm technically disqualified. But many say this happened because of the pressure from Nepali cement producer. They came up with a voice that Nepal is self-reliant in cement production. Don't you think that IBN failed in materializing the biggest investor ever in the country beside the hydropower?
The reason behind the bidding when they entered into with the Department of Geology, they are not able to succeed. There may be several reasons. I cannot blame anyone. based on the information.
What about the pressure of Nepali cement
based on the
producer?
information available
That
to me,
worked as well?
Yeah, it's basically the documentation. They are not able to produce sufficient document required for evaluation. That's what we learn about. But at the same time, we encourage them to continue their efforts. We are also pushing, we are also recommending respective authority, respective ministry to evaluate them for the query. At the same time, we are also requesting respective department to have another round of bidding, international bidding, to offering the mines for the private sector. That's how we are pushing. So far, the demand or the saying of the private sector, what you were mentioning, that we are self-reliant and the self-sufficient on the cement, it's not true. We have to do a lot more on the cement as well. As per the current policy, also you might be aware that the announced by Right Honorable President recently, that the cement industry will be considered as an export oriented industry for Nepal to meet our this huge trade gap. This type of policy is essential. At the same time, competition will provide us better price as well as we will get a quality product in the days ahead. So it is important that even if we are self-sufficient, we have to continue this process by inviting the investment in several sectors.
Likewise, I also learned that Bangladesh government plans to invest $1 billion in Nepal for the hydro project sector. But still, they are waiting for the specific project offer from the government of Nepal. Why we are not able to materialize this offer?
See, it's a G2G arrangement, so it's not. I don't think that big issue for the G2G arrangement. Government can enter into agreement and can award any project to the another government agencies. So that information you mentioned it's not that up to date to me, but I understand it's not big issue. Government can award to another government agency.
Is the geopolitical factor is working as a hindrance here in this context particularly?
Whatever investment we are receiving, that we have to encourage and we have to promote it. So that's a geopolitical issue comes up many times internationally, but the country like Nepal should be encouraged for the investment, because we are far behind on our development process. So even our neighbors or other giant should encourage our investment rather than complain.
And how difficult it is to cope up with that pressure as a CEO of investment board for you?
And so far, I didn't feel any pressure. Whatever, whomsoever investor comes, we meet, we discuss with them. Whatever challenge we face, we face them collectively. Whatever risks are there for implementation, we manage properly. So there are curiosities or concern raised by several corners, but personally I didn't have that sort of pressure or that sort of feeling.
So as we all know, positive investment climate is the cornerstone for attracting investment. What are the key factors that are acting as the impediments for investment in Nepal, and can you underline some of the initiative taken by government to unlock these impediments?
Yeah, earlier there were several, in fact, several bottlenecks, several impediments for the investment. If you see 2.5 years ago, we were with the political risk. We do not have political stability that time. But with the enactment of the constitution and after election, we have got such a full-fledged majority government by which the political risk is significantly reduced, mitigated. By that, the another concern of the investor, particularly the policy consistency and the predictability, is also being gained. Having said that, with the formation of a stable government, policies are being consistent. We are able to commit our foreign investor or a local investor that our policy will be continued, it will be consistent. You can predict the future of your investment. At the same time, we got a clear political and bureaucratic commitment with regard to protection of the investment, which is another concern of the investor. Protection in terms of, say, treatment, fair treatment, that level playing field with the local investor, and also the repatriation of their investment, whether it's a dividend or other form of investment. For that also we have a clear mechanism. So that concern is also clearly addressed. Another concern the foreign investor normally asks for is the efficient service from the government.
Exactly, I was also waiting to ask that. What about the administrative and bureaucratic hurdle? For instance, average time taken for administrative formalities in Nepal is 339 hours. In Nepal, in comparison to other South Asian countries, it's just 283.9 hours. We need to work on that as well.
Yeah, we understand that point. That's why several reform initiatives took place. If you see the reform, recently enacted law, PPP and investment law, and Foreign Investment Technology Transfer Act related amendment, it says even Industrial Enterprises Act also spell out about the service efficiency. Particularly government clearances, government approval, that is taking time. For that, government announced its establishment of a one-stop service center. 14 or 15 service agencies are at the same hall, same block. So the investor will get every service from the single stop, single center.
And adding to reforms led by government, it recently introduced two major policy, Public-Private Partnership and Investment Act and Foreign Investment and Transfer Technology Act. How this policy reform will facilitate for attracting more investment?
PPP and investment law, it is basically the enforcement agency of that law is investment board. PPP center will be placed into the investment board. You can see that there were several cases where the infrastructure related project that requires viability gap funding, for which earlier we don't have any mechanism. Based on this new law, we'll have a related policies, related rules, regulation and guidelines, so that we can move forward with some of the project that requires viability gap funding. Every infrastructure project are not at the interest of private people, private sector. So to make them interesting to the private sector, we have to have certain contribution from the government side as well. That will be provision, that is provision by the new law. So that is one interesting thing. Similarly, the one-stop shop with which we already speak, that is also another component of the new law. That will be enforced. We are busy on framing related rules and guidelines that will come near future. At the same time, the Foreign Investment and Technology Transfer related amendment made just before the summit, that is also a major milestone for the investment friendly environment. It has brought up several other protection related measure and one-stop service.
And I would like to add here, a lot of people are skeptical regarding this new act. The provision of Foreign Investment and Transfer Technology Act allows 100% foreign investment in almost any kind of industry with no upper ceiling. And there's some sense of fear by our local entrepreneur or the local industrialists. They argue that we cannot call investment in every sector. Government has to prioritize the sector. Your take on this?
I think that there is some miscommunication. The sectoral exposure where the foreign investment can be a wholly owned or a fully owned subsidiary is prescribed by the respective law. For example, in case of banking industry, it cannot be more than 85%. In case of communication, it cannot be 80%. There are several areas where 10% or 100% ownership can be taken by the foreign investor. That respective law will prevail on that. At the same time, there are certain practical issues as well, where even foreign investor do not want 100% ownership, 100% investment from their side, and they want local partner, joint venture partner, to mitigate the several local risk, domestic risk, and to have a smooth operation of the industry. So we saw that type of practice already, say for example in cement industry, where they can have wholly owned subsidiary here, but most of the industry they got their local partner, say 80% foreign, 20% local, or 75% foreign, or 25% domestic. So joint venture practice is highly practiced here.
As it said, every opportunities are followed by number of challenges. As we are inviting big investor in our country for investment, there are so many factors that we need to be careful as a nation, like environmental hazard and so many other socio-economic problem. Is the government of Nepal ready to cope up with these challenges as well?
Definitely, while inviting investment or while handling mega projects, we should be very much careful about the challenges or risk associated with the projects. Basically, our key challenges is our capacity. In fact, we have to improve our human resource, we have to build up our capacity. That is one key challenge. The practice of support from the development partner also in this respect. So whether it's an environmental issue, whether it's a social issue, that will be whatever challenges or risk we saw, that needs to be mitigated. For that, normally while dealing with the mega project, we develop a specific plan related to that, and we try to keep on board every stakeholder to handle those things.
We've almost come to an end. At last, I would like to know what are the institutional reforms were taken in IBN, and what more is needed to increase its effectiveness, like functioning of IBN is heavily dependent on the financing from a donor.
While establishing IBN, the government or leadership has taken this risk, in fact, a very challenging role. With the support of the government funding as well as development partners support on it, it cannot be continued forever. While devising the new law, it is emphasized that IBN will be autonomous in terms of financials, and it will be sustainable in the future. So it has its own resources as well through the service. We are getting 0.2% of fee for the PDA negotiation of every project. If you see, so far cost whatever we incurred, that is already recovered from the fee itself so far. So in the future also, if the law has said, we will have a specific dedicated fund where we can keep this type of fee, as well as certain contribution from the government or development partner that will support in future for the financial sustainability of the IBN.
Sir, thank you so much for your time and thoughts as well.
Thank you.